We are live. It is not Gene over, folks. For at least one more week, it is not Gene over. Welcome. Tell your friends. Tell everyone.
Gino's just beginning.
Here. That's right, baby. Baby.
Gino's just warming up.
Our Lions. Let's give it up for our Lions. Yo, one pride, baby.
Dan
one
Campbell making meathead history.
Let's get some one prides in the chat. Holy shit, we have 34 people already in the chat right now. That is really good for us. There we go. What's up, everyone? Guys, how we feeling? Seahawks? Thoughts on the Seahawks? Oh, nice. I wish I had some to join you. I also just drank all my water, so I can't even sip with you.
Thank you, Detroit. Thank you, Detroit.
Propel.
There you go.
What is Propel?
You guys don't have Propel over there?
No, we guys don't have Propel over here.
Do you guys have Gatorade?
Yeah.
All right, so it's like their non-caloric Gatorade, basically.
Oh, right. No free ads.
Made by the same company. Although they also have Gatorade Zero, so I wonder how they market one differently than the other. I don't know. That's interesting to think about.
No free ads.
But is Gatorade zero calories or zero sugar?
Zero sugar. So they still put like cornstarch in there to give it like some weight to it, I guess. So like, I don't know. I just want electrolytes and water, and I don't want the sugar.
Wild.
There you go.
So
you've earned the sugar.
Yeah.
You honestly, you have earned the sugar.
You know,
We've earned the sugar.
I have, but I don't like drinking calories. It makes me feel weird. I'll eat calories all day long, but I don't know why I don't like to ingest it liquid wise.
Shall we just get straight into it then?
Scott, well, real quick, Scott wants to know what beer you're drinking, Matty.
No free ads.
Oh yeah, that's right. No free ads.
No free ads.
Silly me.
Scott, whoever pays us the most money, pal. It's a lager.
If you are an aspiring beer company, leave us a tip in our tip jar in the description below our faces.
Heck, it kind of looks like, sparkling apple juice. So,
there we go.
If you're a sparkling apple juice company,
get
in touch.
That's right.
Yeah, we'll talk about Mafe. That was a great sack, actually.
Yeah, and Bruce Evans comments afterwards as well. Right, let's do it.
Yeah,
let's do it.
Welcome to the Seattle Overload podcast, where your Seattle Seahawks have made the playoffs. They've made the playoffs, courtesy of one, they beat the Rams 19-16, but also the Detroit Lions are basically the Seahawks' favorite team now because they've gone into Lambeau Field where they never win. And they've won 20-16. Aaron Rodgers in prime time, all of that stuff, all the concerns over questionable calls. It didn't come through. They've done it. And I don't know. I can't even talk. I'm so happy and excited. Griff, did you see this coming?
What do you mean? Did I see this game coming, or did I?
The whole event, the mania.
Man, yeah. So they finished the season. The winning record was really important to me as a fan. I wanted them to be a winning team. So I felt like that was, there are no moral victories except that there are, and I took that as a moral victory. So that was great. When they won, I was kind of really at peace with what happened, the Lions or Packers game. Whatever happens. But I was really happy the Lions won. And it continues, and anything can happen. That's the spirit of the playoffs, right?
Yes.
That's right.
And it did cover up a pretty poor Seahawks performance, which we will talk about. But Ty first. How bad were the Packers?
Oh, God. Yeah, they were really bad. Aaron was really bad, especially in that second half. Like, it was all bad. They made so many mistakes. They were getting on their hands and knees and begging the Lions to beat them, and thankfully the Lions obliged. I gotta be real. After realizing like the Lions are gonna win, Seahawks are making the playoffs, kind of a little emotional. Not gonna lie. You know,
Yeah,
I'm just
Ooh.
gonna be
there you go.
real. I'm gonna be real about it because, like, you know what,
Wow.
this one, you know, the Seahawks have made the playoffs a lot in the Pete Carroll era, but this one specifically means just a little bit more. I think, given everything that went into this season. Um, I'm so happy for Pete Carroll and Geno Smith and all these young guys, and you know, guys like Bruce Irvin that are kind of like on a one last ride type of thing. Just for everyone that's been involved in this incredibly fun season, which, you know, could have easily, you know, had no business being as fun as it's been, and I'm just really grateful that we're going to be able to extend this at least 1 week more. It's just it's been a lot of fun, and so yeah, today was crazy. It was nuts, and that game that the Seahawks played was awful. It was really really ugly, and we'll get into all of that. But at the end of the day, this is really fun, and I couldn't be more proud to be a Seahawks fan tonight.
Yeah, and you've got pictures on Seattle's Twitter of Quandre Diggs, Ryan Neal eating together, watching the game, and Darrell Taylor watching the game. I think that's Mike Jackson and Joey Blunt and Jonathan Abram watching the game, and just thinking of that mix of players. Some of those guys, like Abram, brought in off the street with Seattle needing depth, with Ryan Neal getting hurt, obviously Jamal Adams being out for the season. You've got Mike Jackson, who no one thought would even be starting left cornerback, and he's managed to hold that spot down in the face of multiple guys competing for it. You know, he's making the playoffs. You got Quandre Diggs, who this time last year, as you tweeted out, Ty, this time last year, he's carted off the field with what looked like an awful injury, and he's a veteran now, and you don't know how many times you're going to make the playoffs again. And here we go, and they've made the playoffs, and Seattle will be playing in the 4:30 p.m. Eastern time, which is 1:30 p.m. Pacific time, Saturday slot at San Francisco, where they get the opportunity to play the 49ers again. Can they win 3 times in a row? Well, the team who's the example here is in 2007, the New York Giants got swept by the Dallas Cowboys in the regular season. They then went into the Dallas and they walked away with the W. So that's a good example. Something
You say the Giants?
Yes.
They won the Super Bowl that year too.
Yes, they did.
So
I'm just saying. I'm just saying facts right now. So
I'm just saying.
yeah. The Seahawks are the per ESPN stats info tweeted out by Brady Henderson. The Seahawks, there's only 10 teams in the draft era, the common draft era, since 1967, who have picked in the top 5 after making the playoffs. And it hasn't happened since the Jets in 2003. Of course, Seattle making the playoffs and yet having that top 5 pick, 5th overall, which I guess we can talk about, but that's a bit of a vibe killer. But still, top 5, courtesy of the Denver Broncos. So
such you know, wild circumstances then, like such a rare opportunity, and that will really impact like how you want to use those resources, considering that this never happens. So
yep, and Seattle is picking number 20 overall, which with their own pick, which is still a pretty decent pick.
That probably puts them out of the best 2 or 3 receivers. It probably puts them out of reach of like someone like Brian Branch. Beyond that, I need
but then you know, if there's one guy, Griff, who they really wanted to trade up for in the mid round, if their ledge is disappearing, I'm sure they could, you know, give a pick up, say like a Dave 3 or not Dave 3, round 3, round 4 to move up just a little bit to just avoid missing out on that one dude. So
right,
yeah, they're gonna have options, and you know, if number 5, if the guy that they want doesn't fall to them, or you know, they feel good about a couple of guys, they can trade down, collect more capital, and that just helps with more trade ups as well. So you know, there are ways to cope with that. You know, but of course, you know, friendship for now at least ended with Jalen Carter, and Jordan Addison is now my best friend. So
yeah, and just a word for Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions. according to MathBomb, Kentley Platt, who does some great draft data, basically emphasizing, how athletic guys are, measuring it with his relative athletic score. But he's also a Detroit fan, I think, or follows the team, covers the team. He says, with that win, Dan Campbell's increased the Lions' win total more than any head coach in team history from year 1 to year 2. And only once in team history has the team increased their win total more than Dan Campbell did from any season to the next. And that was Monte Clark, who had Billy Sims. So unbelievable stuff from Dan Campbell. And that team played so hard. And there was a moment where it's 2nd and 17. You're like, oh no, this is a problem. And then they come out with a hook and ladder play. They run the hook and ladder. They coached that game to win, and they won. And
hey, what did I say on Wednesday? Right? I said this whole thing, like, where people are insinuating that they're just going to come out, they're not going to try all this stuff. It's silly, man.
Yeah,
dude, it's silly.
Dan
These are
Campbell?
Professionals. It's Dan Campbell. He's so unhinged. He is cracked, dude. The hook and ladder. Are you serious in that moment?
Yeah,
it's insane.
That's insane. Yeah. Campbell plays for his win-loss column on his Wikipedia page. He wants every win that he can get.
And
dude, he just outright said on the broadcast, like, yeah, we don't want those guys to go to advance. Like, what? Dude, hell yeah.
And going fit on the 4th down to just go and win the game right there. Ballsy stuff. And they had the right play calls on the 4th downs as well. Brilliant, like wide open guys. Goff heaving it deep on a throwback to Jameson
They have an
Williams.
awesome run game. They really do. I mean, Ben Johnson, man, he schemes it up.
He'd be a good head coach for Russell Wilson, in my opinion. Just run, and a bit of shots. But also, how about that from Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator? Of course, the guy, when Pete Carroll was head coach of the New York Jets, his first ever NFL draft pick was spent on Aaron Glenn. So a very cool crossover of Pete Carroll's former cornerback, 12th overall to the Jets, coming back, being the defensive coordinator for the Lions, and allowing Seattle to have a shootout with them and Geno Smith to go off. And then coming in and scheming up the Packers, causing Rodgers real issues, getting real big on the old pressure at the end of the game with the pick from Kirby Joseph, where they call in cover 1, but let everyone rush, basically. Anyone whose man stayed in, they rushed. So they ended up 7 going at Rodgers, caused the protection bust. Rodgers throws the pick. Just, I mean, and the officiating, like, there were some scary moments where you're like, did Jameson Williams not get in there? Because he's down and gets up without being touched. And Jamal Williams was definitely in when he rushed the ball. Like, what? I was like, okay, that's a touchdown. Oh, he surged a bit more. That's a touchdown. Oh, it's a third effort. That's definitely a touchdown. And then it's like
the Amon-Ra St. Brown catch that ended up not getting ruled a catch. They said that it like hit the ground too much or whatever. Like that was
he cupped that, right?
That stands 95% of the time.
Yeah, and some of the defensive pass interference calls were dodgy, but at the end of the day, the refs did call some stuff on the Packers. I felt there could have been a rough in the passer penalty where there was definitely a 2 steps and a hit on Rodgers, I thought, and a few other things. So it was all fine in the end. It was all fine, and the Packers lost, most importantly. And now you've got Matt LaFleur getting questions in his press conference like, hey, is Rodgers still the guy? Which the other brilliant part about all of this is Seattle is like, they were supported by pretty much all of the NFL other than Green Bay fans, because everyone wants the Packers to lose. No one cares.
Plus, who wants to see another Packers 49ers playoff game? Who wants to see that? See that like almost every year now. I don't want that. No one wants that. By the way, first time Seahawks are playing the 49ers in the playoffs since the tip. Go,
wow.
guys. Yeah, so there you go. There we go. All right, before we keep on going here, Derek coming through with a 1999 super chat here, saying the Seattle Seahawks are in the playoffs. Thank you so much, Derek. And
thank you, Derek.
They are.
Thank you, Derek. Really appreciate that, man.
No.
They are in the playoffs. You're right. Factually correct. Donations. We support them, especially. Oh, I know. There's a lot of emotions, a lot to unpack. It's a complete 180 because that Seahawks game, guys, was so stressful and so weird and bad from the offense in the main, and yet they're going to San Francisco, and why not?
Yeah, crazy. Yeah, I mean, like this is kind of a. I think this playoff game coming up on Saturday is basically the culmination of this whole season. Just like, you know, probably not going to go well, but hey, let's see what happens. So we got nothing to lose at this point. This is awesome.
Yeah, it's house
is gonna
money
be-
at this point.
Dude, Saturday could be really unhinged. Like,
Yeah.
Why not? Why
yeah,
not?
right? Why not pull out all the stops? Let's just see what happens. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
by the way,
Who would they? All right, go ahead. No, go ahead.
we'd be remiss to mention here that Dad Hat Pete is 1-0 right now. So
Right.
I think
That's
he's
right.
worn that hat before.
Is
I've
he?
seen
Is,
him,
is it?
I've seen him with it a bit.
Is it Dad Hat or On the Run and MCU film hat? Is he? Is he in disguise? Actually,
oh yeah, it's kind of a Kevin Feige hat, low-key.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I hope we get
else?
an answer to that.
Hmm.
Why was he wearing a hat all of a sudden?
Well, his he said something along the lines of early in the season to do with I think it was to do with wearing a different hat or maybe sun cream.
Well,
or
he
something
was worried about
he'd been
skin damage.
his wife had said he'd been being stupid. or something.
Yeah,
but it was
I
it was a
remember that.
cloudy. Now I know cloudy days can be a little. They can be sneakily very.
I think it may have
you
been
can
a
get
sneaky
sunburns.
deal
You can get sunburns on a cloudy day, but
or bad hair day. It's happened.
yeah, that's what I wonder.
Maybe he needs to
I
trim.
mean, either way, something's working because the skin is great.
Oh,
He's
magnificent!
aging very well.
Yeah.
And this will only have replenished his skin.
For sure, I agree.
So amazingly, the Seahawks were 0-13 over the last 2 seasons when trailing after 3 quarters before today. So it's the first time in a while that they've actually finished a game in the 4th quarter.
These are some great stats, stat boy.
Well, Griff came for the crown recently, and I wasn't having that. Yeah.
Just don't hold your breath. There's more. Yeah, we'll get into this game, but they really put together 2 go-ahead drives, in the same game. So
yeah,
true. When it mattered most, they came through, which was really big.
Yeah.
So before we sort of get into the game, I think it was a weird kind of press conference because we were stuck in a situation where, it was in limbo. We didn't know whether the Seahawks were going to make the playoffs or not. And so there's an end of season feel to it, but there's also an end of game feel and all that. So I think Pete said some stuff that, ordinarily if they'd made the playoffs, you wouldn't have got those quotes. And he said that he called the Seahawks a championship team after today's game. He said that they've made a culture and created a team that, when he's been around a lot of winning teams, and he said this is exactly the mentality that we need moving forward to do some great stuff. This is a championship team. And he says they'll get opportunities to add to that and all, but he said the attitude's right and they just need to get a bit more experience to help themselves grow, be better executing in certain situations, but they're in a pretty good place right now, which that's huge. And I think that is, there were definitely growing pains, both sides of the football. This playoff experience will serve them well too. It's hard not to get vibes from earlier teams of the Carroll regime. You can equate different moments to different earlier moments, like, the 2012 team losing to Atlanta on the late field goal, the 2010 Beastquake game, stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, like, even if they get their ass beat, like, this is still valuable experience for a lot of these young guys to be in a game like this and to be in a situation like this and learn, like, how to prepare for for games like this and all that, and just the unique schedule that goes into especially the first couple of weeks of the postseason. So yeah, this is really, I mean, this is just a very important thing for the future of this organization, I believe, and for a lot of these young guys. So it's good.
Yeah. I bet Pete is still shell shocked by the negatives of this team. Like he knows going into every year they're gonna have strengths and weaknesses, but I just think how it shook out is still really confusing to him. I would think. Really talking about the run defense here. I mean, we're talking not just like, oh, they could be better or they were average. I mean, like almost season breaking poor run defense. So that's got to be baffling to him on a lot of levels. And something that we've unpacked and we'll continue to unpack, and we'll try to we'll conjure our own ideas for how they can improve that and stuff. But yeah, I think Pete ultimately though is I totally feel what he's saying though, like how important this was, and them feeling like they have like a championship kind of foundation. Clearly, they don't have all the pieces, but they definitely have like bedrock here.
Well, Griff, to the gist of your point as well, Pete Carroll was asked in his post-game presser if he was happy with 9 wins, and he shook his head. he said he's nowhere near where his expectations are, and they're never near that. But he said he's frustrated by the season because there were quite a few games, 5 or 6 in his mind, where could have went easily one way or the other. And that struggling run defense that you speak about, Griff, is exactly to that point. There's ways they've done this which are not in the Pete Carroll line of thinking. The struggling run game on the offense as well for a large portion of the season. Weird things, but he finished with, "That's my torment. I got to live with that. You guys don't have to live with that." So he's taken it pretty strong that they only went 9-8, which is remarkable.
And with that, he realized he had to coach the team to their strengths. So like he knew that, like, okay, this team isn't what it precisely we thought it was going to be, good and bad. And he coached accordingly and leaned into those strengths, and then tried to schematically smooth out the weaknesses, which at times worked, at times didn't. There's only so much you can do. They could have done a better job as well, I think, as a coaching staff, but ultimately, it all adds up, positives and negatives, and it led to a wild card berth. So.
And how about Geno Smith? Like, okay, this game was his worst game of the season, in my opinion. He admitted as well that he was very shaky. But, he finishes the year he's basically top 7 in every basic passing metric. And then in the advanced metrics, he'll be in a similar range as well. Okay, the season tailed off a bit, but like the fact that Geno did that, and, after the game, he's emotional, he's crying, he's basically going to be the comeback player of the year. Like, I can't really think of anyone else who fits the title better than Smith.
They might go Saquon. Hopefully not, though.
No, I mean, surely as a quarterback.
Also, yeah, Geno's a quarterback though, so like,
and he's the embodiment of the award. Like, and it's so cool that it's not even like a sad thing, like he's coming back from injury. This is like a guy who was last a starter in 2014 or whatever, maybe a bit after as well. Am I missing something? But anyway, he comes back in and he's just pretty damn good tape wise as well. Like, this, I think, is probably the first game we go back to the tape and it'll be like, the process here you can really criticize. I think the Panthers game as well maybe wasn't that good. But like Pete after the game saying, it mentions how Geno completed 69.8% of his passes on the season and so many passing touchdowns as well. He also credited the system, because I wondered maybe if Shane Waldron would come under some pressure. I think the fact that they won this game obviously helps, but Pete goes, our system's really good. What we're asking the quarterbacks to do, and so he obviously caveated that they need to get Geno signed, but it seems like they want to get that done. It is a business, but surely.
I'd be stunned, like jaw on the floor, like stunned.
It's great that he didn't like dance around that. Like the fact that he just kind of stated it, like that's kind of our intention, because he could have, he kind of sidestepped it earlier in the year, like at 2 different junctures, but so.
Yeah. And I think that's probably just something that's like both sides kind of know is just an inevitability. So neither side is really, too concerned about it. So it's good.
So I guess now I'm unpacking this game. the offense. So obviously Seattle won 19-16. They needed overtime to do it. And the offense was really, really shaky. They only went 1 for 11 on third down, despite managing 402 total yards. I don't know what I don't know what was going on really with the. It seemed like they opened the game in loads of quick game passing, and then Gino made a poor decision on a. Well, firstly, the game starts and it starts with that pick, right? And Ty, your mind's immediately like, "What the heck?"
Yeah, I mean, it was good play by Jalen, obviously. So like, it happens. But yeah, I mean, the vibes were like really off when when that happened. So, but thankfully they were able to put together a nice defensive stand there, limit LA to just 3 points, and I think that kind of reverted things back to neutral, and they were able to just go from there. But yeah, if they were if they found themselves down 7-0 that quick, that would have been uh-oh. But yeah, fortunately they were able to keep things pretty close there. And didn't they tie it on the next drive? Didn't they go down the field and kick the field goal, tie it, or was it the drive after?
Yeah, they did. They did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, so
and then the second pick, which somehow wasn't a pick, was kind of wild to me. But anyway, that seemed like a good play from the defender. But again, Gino throwing that, it's like, you could ding him for that. Like, it's not the right read. And then, yeah, and his third interception was awful. Like, play design, play call, and then awful from Gino to throw that. And it seemed like, I don't know, because he was so emotional after the game. Maybe it's just the situation just caught up with him slightly. Like, he's played in big games in college, but this was you have to win to have a chance of making the playoffs. So maybe that is a learning moment for him. I don't know.
It did come right after the one drive he put together that was really good, and I
Yeah, so
wonder
it's
if
like
he was just a little too confident. I don't know. I did wonder though, was DK supposed to settle into the zone? I'm not sure.
Maybe, but
I
it
don't
still
know.
wouldn't have worked, like, because of the spacing.
Yeah, I mean, he was way too even if he was supposed to settle, Gino was way too confident that he would have to throw that the way that he did. I don't know. I really didn't like the play call. It was not a good decision from Gino. It was a bad decision. Yeah.
Yeah. And Gino tweets after the game, funny thing is, I'll be way better with a full off season to focus on improvements from actual game reps, but that can wait. Go Lions, which, I mean, the Go Lions part worked, as we've covered. That game reps thing is interesting because I think there are some moments where, he will have learned, including that interception where it just plays out differently in practice. But yeah, the run game was good. Like, the average 5.5 yards per carry, 197 attempts on, sorry, 197 attempts, 197 yards on 36 rushing attempts. Yeah, we need to see the tape because there were plays early on where Gino had to use his legs rather than throwing downfield, and it's like, why was the ball not out? Based on past tape, we can assume guys weren't getting open. Well, then why is that? The offensive line had their moments of struggling on the interior. We kind of know the weak points of this team. It's just the fact that Gino made like one too many bad decisions that was a bit unsettling, and just the fact that it's just weird. And then the end of regulation, I guess you can point the finger at Pete Carroll for how that was handled. That was really poor time management and just poor management in general. Like, the 2nd and goal run after Kenneth Walker's toss, he gets out of bounds. Seattle had to burn a timeout and then ran the ball again from the shotgun, which puts Blythe in a one-on-one situation that few centers are going to win. Then that run gets blown up. Then they kick the field goal from 4th and 5, 4th and goal, which fine, do that. But I don't know, weird to burn the timeout, because then when Gino marches you down the field, does a great job doing that. And it was a really good drive. Griff, you said they almost had 2 game-winning drives. Like, I mean...
Yeah, I mean, for a game of overall bad offense, when it was time to go win the game, the offense between Gino and Ken Walker, and really everyone, of course, they put together 2 game-winning drives, to put them in a spot to win it. So that was, I mean, that was good to see that they still had that even on their worst day.
But because they had no timeouts, and then that was a weird play as well. They ended up getting on the right hash, and the time's ticking. They run out of the time, have to spike the football throughout that game, and maybe even in the game before. Jason Myers has been. Well, he missed his last field goal, didn't he? The game before. And in this game, he's pushing it right, and you're like, oh, hopefully they don't need him to kick a game winner or a game tie, because this could get a bit hairy. And because they're on the right hash, he pushes it right, and it doinks right off the post. And fortunately, over time, Bobby Wagner loses the toss. And like you said, Griff, 2 game-winning drives. That was the second one, wasn't it? Where they put it all together. Did they?
Yeah. I mean, if we want to talk about Gino had 2 pretty key throws. The one that DK dropped in a tight window, that was where the ball needed to go. Then he hit Tyler on the shallow. He hit Colby Parkinson on the seam up the middle. I mean, that was Gino kind of playing. He was playing like elevated, and knowing what, like, some of it was tight window stuff, some of it wasn't. But reading the play out and still making the play and not playing like too like shook, you could say, based off of what had transpired on tight window throws earlier. So I mean, that's got to count for something. But yeah, also, I mean, I think Ken Walker, he only had 3.9 yards per carry, but I thought he ran really well this game. Another game of hitting holes when he should have. The blocking was hit or miss, but still better than it's been. I mean, he was playing heroically. Some of that one run where he hit the bubble and he made the safety coming down miss in that tight spot. I mean, that play's going to look insane on the end zone angle when we get a hold of the tape, because on the broadcast it looked crazy. I don't know how he was able to sidestep him and maintain his balance and accelerate again. I mean, that's why he was the best running back in the draft last year, or at least one of the top 2, right? I mean, those are insane traits.
Yeah, it's like we said, it's that top 50 element to his game that you can sort of argue whether you should spend a top 50 pick on a running back, but that's the reason why and the NFL in general values those guys in that area, because they do have special traits which the running back value picks, the day 3 guys, just do not have. Yeah, and the other time management thing, I guess, just circling back to that, is they had to take a timeout after Quandre Diggs' interception, which, like, surely the offensive staff should just be like, okay, we got the ball back, let's go. Why is there, offense and defense are 2 different elements, there's a different coaching staff, there's different players. It's easier said than done, but you've got to be a bit more prepared and in the moment, which, again, young team, learning moment maybe for the coaching staff as well. Waldron still learning maybe as an offensive coordinator. I don't know, but it's just poor management, and hopefully that gets cleaned up for the playoffs.
I want to catch up on a couple of super chats here. One from Dan for $1.99 says, "Hell of a season, guys. Thanks for all the content." Thank you. And
Thank you.
Tomas donated $5. Says, "I think we should still sign one of the top QBs." I think they mean draft, because hopefully we won't be picking in the top 10 anytime soon. What do you think?
Great question. I don't know. I need to delve into the quarterbacks, but realistically, my 2 cents on that doesn't matter. And the big thing with that as well is, it'd be nice if you could talk to guys. But that's a really boring and overly sensible take. I think, it was always said how Schneider loved Patrick Mahomes, which is easy for that to come out because, Patrick Mahomes is pretty good, and it only came out a bit after how much he liked him. Even though, we heard that he was at his pro day. Same thing happened with Josh Allen, if you remember. I mean, those guys kind of have this special upper traits that, like Geno Smith, for instance, will never have that level of traits. So if there is a guy like that who Schneider's besotted with, and like you say...
And there are probably 2 of those guys in this draft that kind of fit that bill. Those guys being Will Levis and Anthony Richardson. Who are not the top prospects either.
Right. So then it's like, do you have to spend a top 10 pick on that? Could you spend number 20 on that? Does that mesh well with Geno, because I think we all here think Geno Smith should be re-signed.
Yeah.
And the way it will work out, I think, with him being 32 years old, 1 year of production, I think that'll be more team friendly than some may have originally thought, especially with the second half dip of production.
The other element here is, let's say Stroud and Young aren't options for them, whether via availability or say they just don't think they're worth them being picked at 5, which honestly there might be an argument for. Definitely, I mean, I think they're good quarterback prospects, don't get me wrong, but how do they view Richardson and Levis compared to Drew Lock, with that theory behind those types of picks where they're kind of projects, but you really like their tools? Do they like Lock's tools more, and do they think he's further along internally than we might think?
And on that point, Griff, Pete, when he was talking about the quarterbacks and the quarterback-friendly system, again talked up Drew Lock and said, I've seen him play a number of times and, he's really good, something along those lines. And he said that all through the season, even when not asked about that. And okay, it's supporting your guy, but clearly they really like Lock's tools. It's just about harnessing that. The best stuff we saw in the playoffs of Lock was incredibly toolsy and had a lot of people thinking Lock should be the guy over Geno. The bad stuff was, like the sack fumble against Pittsburgh, where he forgets, he doesn't reset the protection correctly or doesn't throw hot, but he should have reset the protection. We've covered that ad nauseum. But the point being, it's not the tools which are the problem with him. The tools are the attraction. The problem is just being ready to play quarterback in the NFL. And that's something that will be developed over time. And in Pete's mind, I'm sure, with the culture that Seattle have. Lock's 26 now. Imagine if he, 6 years' time after Geno retires, Lock takes over as Seahawks quarterback after the Pete Carroll quarterback factory. That feels unlikely with how the NFL works. But, I think in Pete's mind, there's probably some sort of ambition there. Lots of quarterbacks play until they're, more and more playing into their late 30s. But maybe Geno hangs it up after 3 consecutive Super Bowls when he's 35. And then Drew Lock takes over. I don't know, but I'm sure there's a scenario in Pete's head where he can make both things work. And Lock does have serious tools. I don't think we have a doubt about that. So yeah, Griff, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. And to Tamas's question, I'm not so sure about if they take a quarterback, then that guy is wow. Like that, goes without saying. But it's especially given Seattle's circumstances right now. And then that's a lot of pressure. And the Seahawks talk about the pressure on these quarterbacks. I think it would be more likely, and I guess this is obvious, but I think it's much more likely that they take a, day 2, 3 guy.
Sure.
And they don't have to force Stroud or Young if they're not super high on him, because they have Geno. Yeah. And then the other element, I said this last year about this year's class. I was like, well, last year wasn't a great year for needing quarterbacks because also Stroud and Young are coming up. As it turns out, they weren't quite speaking personally, they weren't quite what I thought they were going to be. They're still high-end quarterbacks, but they're not anywhere near like Trevor Lawrence's level as a prospect, for example. But then that said, next year's quarterback class is genuinely exciting. There are 3 or 4 guys that you might put on Trevor Lawrence's level as a prospect, depending on how their junior year, senior year goes. So I don't know. It might make sense to hold out 1 more year. It might make sense to, wait day 2. I feel like that's the sweet spot for taking a quarterback this draft, is round 2 for Seattle's purposes. But then again, if they really like one of these guys, all right, I'll swallow that pill. But
yeah, if they want to collect the asset, right? My preference is don't do it at 5, because it's just, unless you were just so, and obviously we have to add the caveat here that if they really like the guy, then they should just do it, right? If that's what they believe in. But my preference is don't do it at 5. But anything after 5, in my mind, I'm cool with them with them going quarterback. So,
and we should say the reason that the Seahawks are picking at number 5 overall is that unfortunately the thing that we worried about happened. It looked like it was going to be almost worst case scenario for a lot of today. And then it wasn't. So that's good. But unfortunately, Denver beat the Chargers despite Brandon Staley playing his starters, getting Mike Williams carted off the field. that's not Staley's fault, but it's the risk that you run when you do that approach.
Mhm.
But the Chargers lost 31-21, 31-28. That puts the Broncos at 5-12. That moved their pick up to, which is Seattle's pick, up to 5th overall, because the Colts managed to lose Lovie Smith on the way out, saying, "Thanks for firing me. I'm gonna rob you of the number 1 overall draft pick." The Texans beat the Colts 32.
They went for 2 to take the lead there late. They could have tied
I
it
know.
at
It was-
31 all.
That was magical. So that's very funny, but from a Seattle perspective, a bit of a bummer. The Bears are now the number 1 overall pick, which again, that's not ideal because in theory they have their quarterback. Maybe they trade down, but if they want to just say F it, Will Anderson's so good, or we just need an edge. We just need a good defensive player. Then maybe Will Anderson goes to Chicago at 1 overall. That will all work itself out, but that sucks. And then I guess if 5th overall happens, Griff, I'd be interested in your thoughts on this, because you said, correct me if I'm misquoting you, but you said something along the lines of this edge class isn't very good after Will Anderson. And so if that's the case, then if you're at 5 and Anderson's gone, is there an argument that you trade down in a mini trade down if you can and go best player available? Unless, of course, as Tamas was pointing out, maybe there's a quarterback they love. But my thinking with that is, generally speaking, that kind of 5 and onwards range is where maybe the one overall receiver starts to go, maybe the tackles go. But Seattle's set at tackle. Their receiver pairing is very, very good. Obviously, they need to upgrade in that area, but it's very high to take a dude. Obviously, there's guys you like, but surely the better value, as is often the case in the draft, is to trade a little mini trade down. Or am I off base?
No, I agree with you. I feel like right after those 2, and then a couple other positions that they just don't need right now, that's a really bad spot to be in the draft right now, between like 5 and 11 or 12. It just doesn't feel like that's where you want to be ideally. Picking in the teens feels a lot better. If Anderson and Carter are gone at 5, and they can turn 5 overall into another 2024 draft pick, 1st round pick, and still pick in the teens and then pick at 20 again, I would feel pretty good about that. You're probably at that point, you're saying goodbye to drafting a legit, I think, legit impact defensive lineman. This round, I'm really not a fan of who comes after Carter or Anderson. God, I just turned them into a poor man's toe. After that, man, I mean, I feel like almost all the DL except for Tyree Wilson, I'm forgetting about him. All the other names, I feel like they should go in the 20s or late teens, and even then, they're not exactly square fits for Seattle's scheme. So
it's Carter Simpson.
Yeah.
Carter-Simpson, that's right.
No, Griff. We want Jordan Addison, right? We want Jordan Addison.
Carter Simpson.
Son.
Yeah.
Carter and
son of
Addison.
Carter.
Yeah.
There you go, listener. A very handy way of remembering the
Cartanderson.
4 names.
Yeah, there you go. Cartadison. Sure. There we go.
Okay, so I feel bad because we've nagged about the Seahawks offense a bit, but actually the defense played well enough. Like Los Angeles for 14 on 3rd down, below the 50% mark. They only put up 3 second half points. Seattle only allowed 1 touchdown.
They really showed up in the red zone, which was nice.
Yep. Felt like their 4-man front run fits were, for the main, okay.
Yeah. Maybe.
I know we missed the Bear front, Griff.
Well, I mean, they defended the run well against the Rams in their 4-man front last time. Again, at least their like main running back scheme. This week, I really want to get into the tape, watch what happened. The pass defense performed the way you'd want it to against Baker Mayfield and those receivers. Like they didn't underperform. They lost a couple of one-on-one situations where they're kind of out schemed by alignment, like those in-breakers from reduced splits. Those just kind of happen. Although we say that and it's frustrating, like, well, why can't Seattle do the same thing against other defenses that they're outmatched by on offense? But there's a lot there. It's not always that simple, but still, the defense played well. Quandre Diggs made an absolutely insane play that probably got helped by the wind. That made the ball die a little bit, but still insane recovery, insane range. I wonder what happened, how that route got so wide open.
So to that point, to me, it's very clever. They called in his best beater. So I think, well, it doesn't really matter for the purposes of it, but it was split field, I think. And they like motioned around with it, and then they ran a wheel route which occupied Tariq Woolen, because it was a wheel route which ran vertical. So I think Woolen was in a cloud, but he could have been in the deep quarter. Hey, Rico, you're in timeout, buddy. You can't just come in here with that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think they occupied Woolen, and so Diggs had like a deep. It was like a deep out for Woolen, I think, or deep comeback, and then a really deep corner route. So it's just like a fake, like I'm going to beat your coverage concept.
Yeah. And like, what if the protection held up forever?
Yeah, and it did. But then Diggs was like, Diggs was asked after the game what he's thinking. He said, "I can't really give you the language because it would be pretty bad because this guy's very open." But that was incredible to undercut that and the catch. It was like an NCAA 14 glitch. Like it was just nuts. It was just nuts. And so great how Mark Sanchez on the broadcast was like, "Oh," and I'm like, "Oh my God, what is going on here?"
Yeah.
And then the camera off the screen, Diggs comes, and you're like,
Here
"Whoa,
comes Diggs like a hero."
Take that.
I mean, we should say Quandre, like he hasn't been making as many plays in the flat. He's dropped some interceptions, which to me is not a criticism. That's if you're dropping interceptions, it means you're in position to make an interception. So that's anyway. His down in, down out duty as a cover player, with the main stuff that he does is like been rock solid this year, and he deserves recognition for that. He had that play against the Raiders where he's coming down on the flat, awkward play. Could have played it better, sure, but that's like 2% of what he does. 90% of what he does in coverage, he's been everything they've paid him for. So I don't know. I think that's worth mentioning. That was a great play at the end there. Also, we should talk edge rush and individuals.
Let's do it. So Bruce Irvin, after the game, it was a great press conference because it's so cool that he's 35 years old. He's with the team who took him in the first round back in 2012. He's come back. He's mentioned now Pete Carroll has blue eyes, and when they look at you, you can't say no to him. And all this stuff it's just amazing. He obviously loves Seattle. He's such a great player. He's veteran presence, saying how much he didn't expect to play so much, but he has been. But then he shouts out the two young edge rushers. So Darrell Taylor, firstly, he has 9.5 sacks on the 2022 season. That's what he finishes with, which super, super impressive, given that he didn't start the year as he'd wanted to, as Taylor himself admitted. But Irvin goes, I've seen Darrell Taylor, who everyone was expecting at the beginning of training camp, the type of player that everyone was expecting. But he's special. And
Griff's having a good time on Twitter right now.
Is he? I'm trying to big up Darrell Taylor. So
like every time Matty starts talking, Griff starts like
just laughing.
A lot happening, folks.
Disrespectful.
The timeline is. I mean, I can't blame Griff though. The timeline is crazy right now.
We will get to the US Open. I want to ask about the US Open, but can we just do you asked about the edge rush? Let me do the edge rush, man.
Edge rush. Who cares about edge rush?
Oh right, okay.
Twitter.
Twitter
is all that matters.
You never have cared about that. Yeah. But Bruce was saying that Taylor's special, but the big thing was the end of his comment. He said that when Taylor ain't talking loud and he's actually listening, he can actually play some ball, which, I mean, there was a reason why Darrell Taylor wasn't playing. And part of it was he couldn't be trusted to set the edge, but maybe that hints at some of the other issues, which is becoming more mature.
It's still bizarre to me because it's a regression from last year because he was setting the edge last year.
Yeah, and I think Taylor is quite a confident guy and like outspoken, vocal. So maybe it was just about, being a bit more humble, learning some things.
Right, for sure.
And then you want to talk about Maffei, Griff?
Yeah, I mean, like we've seen he about a month and a half ago he started really kind of getting his act together against the run, kind of like learning how to play the run really. I think I really wasn't worried about that long term. I mean, he has all the traits and he's a high effort player. So it's probably just kind of technique and understanding blocking schemes and stuff. And that seemed to happen, like making plays on the front side of the play, setting the edge, making plays on the back side of the play, chasing things down. He was even swimming inside on guys a little bit, trying to make plays in the backfield, probably taking notes from Uchenna Nwosu and Bruce Irvin. But then by way of pass rush, I mean, he wasn't showing, I don't think he had a single win all year long that wasn't unblocked. He had a couple of games where like his speed to power was showing up, but you still wouldn't call it like a win or a pressure, but it's just like, okay, his traits are showing at least. But so then this game, he finally had like a legit rush, and it was a sack too. I mean, it was pure speed, and I don't think he's going to be a primary speed rusher. I think he needs to be like a speed to power guy, just because I don't think he has the bend to capitalize on the speed that he does have. But it's great that he had enough get off there that he could beat the tackle well enough that his lack of bend was made up for the fact that he just beat him so bad and he could recover. And he needs to have that on display so that he can establish the threat of his speed on tackles, so that when he does power guys, it knocks him off balance more often.
And Griff, that's exactly what Irvin talked about. He mentioned that play as a moment. He said he got off the ball, ran around the tackle, got the sack, because that is a big, like, that has to be his like plan A move, right?
Right. I mean, yeah.
And he should, in theory, be able to make it work because he has the get off. We never quite saw the bend, perhaps, but
yeah, I mean, I mean, that idea has to be there in a tackle's mind. This guy could beat me around the hoop if I'm not careful. And then ultimately, hopefully in time, it's the power and the counters come through. Because I mean, really, I mean, a guy to watch is like Rashawn Gary. Rashawn Gary is like all get off, but he converts it to power. He's a little bigger than Mafe.
Yeah, that's the thing.
But he did slim down though. He's supposedly 265.
Okay.
So,
and that was what Mafe was at the combine, I think.
Right.
In that range, he was heavy.
But I mean, he still doesn't look quite as thick as Gary, but still, that's kind of because Gary kind of has bend issues too, because his body, so he has to rush with like tilt toward the tackle. But both those guys still need to establish the threat of speed. So his one sack, his one good play coming from just pure get off and, and arc speed, like that's a really good sign.
Yeah.
So
Bruce said that Boye's made tremendous strides, and he texted him to say that from when Bruce arrived until this point, the difference is day and night, or night and day. So very cool again, and I think that is starting to show up, and it's nice. We have more football, so it's not the end. It's only the beginning of the end.
It's not Gene over.
Yeah,
it's not Gene over.
Also, really quick, Daryl Taylor, he had the one cleanup sack, which is great because he's an athlete when the play breaks down. But then on that 3rd and 8, where Baker escapes and ends up throwing it, and Mike Jackson tackles him for about 6 yards, setting up the 4th and 2. I mean, Taylor got that party started. He had a really good speed rush, just pure bend, get off, winning at 8-9 yards, bending it at 9-10 yards on a deep drop on 3rd and 8. I mean, that's where 3rd and 8 is when you're going to get deeper drops and you can run the full length of the pocket. And when you're as bendy as Taylor, that's your world to live in. And he killed the play right there. So that was definitely a sack worthy rush. So
yep,
that was good to see as well.
Seems like the Seahawks avoided some like major injuries. So like DJ Dallas leaves the game, rolled his ankle. Again, per Pete. That Willem thing was scary, but seems like it was okay. It looked like he rolled his ankle.
My heart dropped into my ass when I saw him on the ground.
Your arse? Oh,
yeah,
that word.
My arse.
Oh dear. No, that was horrifying. But he came back and he got kind of beat a bit by Van Jefferson. Don't know if he's lacking some quickness. There was also some tough concepts for him to cover, but thank goodness he's actually seemingly okay. Mike Jackson had some nice pass breakups. Probably should have been picks, but still out there competing. I don't know. This team has its limitations that we all know, but they are a playoff team. And Ty, what jersey are you wearing?
You already know, baby.
Wow, there we go. And
MV Gino. He's not actually the
D-
MVP, but he's the MVP of my heart. So
despite his shaky game today, albeit as Griff said, with 2 game-winning drives, basically, he finished the season setting single-season Seahawks franchise records in attempts, 572, which isn't that big a deal. But more importantly, completions, 399, yards, passing yards with 4,282, and completion percentage at 69. Nice.
what?
0.76%. Unfortunately, he didn't make the 70%
Yeah,
mark, which
he was
a
so
bad game
close.
does, but it's all good. What's up, Dakota?
Oh
Thank you so
my
much for the
word.
donation.
Most charitable man in Washington.
That's very
Dakota is
kind.
back. Did Dakota make a? Did you guys run into Dakota on Thursday? Or
No.
is Dakota
I
back
think
from?
they said hello. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
we had a
okay.
little cameo.
Yeah.
There we go. There we go. What's up, Dakota? Thank you so much.
So it's kind of wild that I'm going around in circles here, but Taylor finished tied with Nwosu in sacks for the season.
Yeah, and his pressure rate was lower than it was last year. So it's just the fact that he can kind of have a down year and still convert a lot of his pressures to sacks is pretty crazy and indicative of his talent. So we should be looking at the floor here. And really, this season might have been as simple as like Taylor's production was just a 100% a function of down and distance, really. Like he might have been the same player as he was last year as a pass rusher anyway. It's just the pass rush opportunities were so less frequent that you wouldn't think that he was the same guy, but perhaps he was. I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird as well. Like I don't know, with how the scheme and the direction of the defense was so shaky as we've covered, and like so uncertain and sort of scrambling. The 4-man front obviously helps Taylor, but it is really mainly situational stuff. And in the passing downs, you would be in the 4-man front anyway. I was going back actually. Diggs in the offseason, Griff, he said that this defense reminded him of Detroit when he was there with Terrell Austin as the defense coordinator. And I wonder how much that was, I took that as like a coverage thing where they ran loads of 3-match, which Seattle does, and they ran loads of quarter,
Right.
half, and then a tiny bit of half quarter. But they also ran so many 4-man fronts. And at the time, I didn't think about that because we just presumed that they'd go back to their bear, which had worked, and all those routes.
Right.
But now in hindsight,
they have completely abandoned nickel bear. Like they're in complete favor of nickel over, which is, this happened where they abandoned it in that first Rams game, and I thought that was just because they wanted to make sure their edges weren't in any like run pass conflict with the jet, that they weren't flat defenders. But then it stayed, and yeah, they played some base bear / under, mostly under actually, but still some base bear. But then nickel was pure 4-2-5. And then that never, maybe that was because they wanted to use Abram more, and they wanted him more as just kind of like a classic strong safety, down safety, and they didn't want to give him any like nickel responsibilities in zone and too high coverages. I don't know, man. Maybe he didn't understand the run fits. He didn't have time to get acclimated. I don't know, because even though he's a backup safety, do you make all these accommodations for a backup safety? That's a really important position because you have so many checks you have to handle and everything. So do you want to make it as simple for him as possible? I don't know. I hope something comes out
it's
during
happened
the off season.
It's happened before though, like like the playing of like nickel, like 2-4-4-2 looks to in short yardage to like 12 personnel, that sort of stuff. That's happened not just today, but like in other games. They just clearly,
right, which is insanity.
It is, yeah.
Like even 3rd and 2, 11 personnel, and you're acting like it's 2 and 8 or something. I don't know. It's really weird to me. And they still defend the pass well on those downs in it, but like run defense matters when it's bad enough.
Yeah, and I guess the other frustrating thing was the boot play action rules. Like the coverage seemed to regress throughout this game, which we've seen inconsistencies throughout the year with that. When in like 2021 and 2020, they seem to have figured that stuff all out. And Bear does help you with that. But yeah, anyway, that's a subject for another day. We'll have our film podcast out as well on Thursday, the usual time. But there's 123 people in here, so
Oh my
let's
word.
play a fun little game. Let's see how many likes the video has.
Ooh. Here. Jackson wants to know, Ty, are you gonna wear the Goff jersey during Locked On Mariners? All right, so I did say that if the Lions won, I would buy a Jared Goff jersey.
You
and
did.
I did.
Honolulu
I did.
Blue.
Honolulu
bought
Blue,
it?
of course. Yeah, I bought it. So I did it. I'm unhinged. So I've made the
Wow.
deal that the week that I get it, I'm wearing it on every single show that I do that week, whether it's Control the Zone Live, whether it's Locked On Mariners, whether it's this show. I'm wearing it on every single show that week that I get it. So you're going to be seeing a lot of it.
That's very fetching. It'll probably bring out the color of your eyes,
Yeah.
Lovely. Delightful.
Beautiful.
So yeah, we have 126 people watching now, and we only have 40 likes.
130 now. And we only have 40 likes.
So 90 of you are evil. Evil people.
That's right.
Y'all are tripping.
You need
Y'all
to like the video.
You guys must be 49er fans.
And you need to subscribe to the channel.
Bang, bang, Niner gang.
It's very simple. It's one click of your mouse. But also, this is awesome. Thank you, everyone, for joining in.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys.
So let's deal with questions. Can Penny come back for this game? From Patrick Chase. Can Penny come back for this game? I remember him saying he would be ready if we make the playoffs. Would be a huge boost. That sounded like optimistic Penny. I'm not so sure that that's actually going to be a thing. Although it
That
would
was
be cool.
Cope from Penny. Yeah.
It was slightly copy, slightly, but you should positively manifest. Don't get me wrong, but I unlikely, very unlikely. And then here we go. Colin Wimbush. Can we get breakdowns of Will Anderson, Jalen Carter, or Anthony Richardson? Yes, but Colin, the Seahawks won. The Packers lost. So draft stuff can wait. In time.
Mm-hmm.
Good things come to those who wait, including a Seahawks playoff trip to the San Francisco 49ers, which is going to be amazing.
It's going to be unhinged.
Right.
Chaos Ball. DJ
Chaos
Dallas
Ball.
Wildcat.
There we go. Hey, that was working today. They were actually doing some stuff with that. So
They were. So
yeah.
Hey, Griff. Oh, Bree. Sorry about that.
No, don't block her or them.
You're in timeout, Bree.
There's just it's a 5-minute timeout.
Yeah, you just got to learn, there's a line. You can't cross the line.
Yeah.
I don't make
now
the rules.
you got to think about what you've done and then come back to us in 5 minutes after you've thought about what you did.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So, Griff, the US Open. What's going on?
Questions.
What's going on with you?
Well, as we all know, I've been entrenched with an intense rivalry with the US Open Twitter account manager. Mm-hmm. They stated that, someone stated that tennis isn't a sport, which I don't abide. But like in all things, real world conflict, he cast one stone, people want to retaliate, and sometimes there's splash damage. And unfortunately, Geno Smith was a recipient of that splash damage. They stated that we would be watching Drew Lock for 17 games this year. Not only was that not correct, it was very not correct. The implication was that they would be bad also. So not only did Drew Lock not start, it was Geno Smith actually who started. And they went 9-9 with the playoffs, and Geno Smith, for the most part, looked pretty dang good doing it all. So I think it's safe to say we won. And I hope that the US Open Twitter account manager is doing all right, all things considered. But they won the battle. We won the war.
That's right.
And now a new war is beginning.
A war on tennis.
A war on the postseason. Okay, a war on tennis.
We're invading Wimbledon.
Boots on the grass.
Boots on the grass.
Boots on the chalk. The clay. What are the other tennis surfaces?
Hard, like just hard, like I don't know what
Like-
do they call it hard?
Hard is not
Isn't
a
it clay?
surface. That's just a.
What is it?
No, it's not clay. It's hard. There's clay and there's hard. I'm pretty sure it's just called hard.
There's
Grass,
no-
clay, hard, and artificial grass.
What?
Yeah. I know my
How is
tennis.
hard? Is it like
What is
concrete?
hard? Yeah.
Look, at
is
the
that-
end
is
of
it
the
rock?
day, what's the oldest tennis championship? Pretty sure it's Wimbledon. Where is Wimbledon? It's in Britain. Where am I from? Britain.
Where's
Where are you
Britain?
from? America. You don't know anything about tennis. It's a hard sport.
we have the U.S. Open. We just established that we have
Yeah.
the U.S. Open.
And what's that played on,
stands
Ty? What's the surface?
bad
Uh,
football takes.
Hard.
Yep.
Is it played on hard?
Very, very hard.
What is hard made out of?
What
It's
is
just
hard?
hard.
made out of? No,
Well, you know,
what-
soft.
that is not a
It's the
hard. Is
opposite
not a
of soft.
material. It's not a material.
Yeah, hard
It's
is
not a-
hard is like a property. It's not a substance itself.
Yeah.
It's a property of substance. Different
Uh,
substances.
Aren't they asphalt? Pretty sure they're asphalt.
Matty language. Jeez.
Yeah, Matty.
Get your mind out the gutter.
You're telling us that. Look in the
yeah.
mirror, pal.
Yeah. You're right. I don't know. What else? What else should we
There's
talk
just
about?
there's just no containing you.
I'm trying to change the topic, please.
You can't be tamed. I'm not going to allow you to U-turn out of this, Matty.
Here it is.
By the way, the Seahawks have successfully U-turned their way into the postseason after not making it last year. Congrats.
Oh, can we talk about our predictions before the season of what record we thought the Seahawks had? Because not only did we think that Geno Smith would be proving people wrong,
Mhm.
but we predicted the records. Griff, what did you say?
I think I officially said 8 and 9. I wasn't a believer.
Oh,
I should
don't-
have.
So
I don't
close.
remember what I said.
Mm.
I remember being on our Patreon show with Colby and saying like, yeah, I think this team could make the playoffs. I think I said like nine
On a
nines.
Mariners podcast.
Well, our Patreon show is for everything. It's
Okay,
everything.
Ty, do you want to plug that real quick?
Yeah, patreon.com/control the zone. Check it out.
It's
Do it.
baseball.
It's
Well, it's Ty doing baseball, so
everything.
it's a
It's
bit-
everything.
Okay.
It's everything. It's a little bit of everything.
Okay. There you go.
Yeah.
I said 10-7 at the start of the season. So I was
Okay.
I
So
was
you
an
so you
idiot.
were wrong. So you were
I was
wrong. Is what
wrong,
you were saying.
badly
Yeah. Way
Yeah,
off the mark.
That's my bad. It's
Yeah.
because I went to Germany and caused the Seahawks to lose that game.
Yeah, that's right. You were
Yeah.
you were the
Yeah.
curse. Fortunately, you won't be in Santa Clara, so things are on the up and up for the old Seattle Seahawks.
Oh,
Jackson. Oh wow, Jackson's coming through. He said
Wow.
Ty said on CTZ in May we would go 10 and
Oh.
7. There we
idiot.
go.
So wrong. Just like me.
I know. I was
We're just
I-
clueless.
yeah. I just have no idea what I'm talking about. Neither do you,
Carol,
Matty.
You'd really like to hear what we can do to SF. Yes, we will preview the San Francisco game on Wednesday and Thursday. Don't worry about that. But the
That's
Seahawks
right.
can do a lot to San Francisco. It's
Mm,
time to believe.
that's
I
right.
mean, they were.
Hey.
They nearly closed the gap in the last one, barring some turnovers going the other
Yeah.
way. So
And as you said at the start of the show, very hard to beat a team 3 times, very hard to lose to a team 3 times in a season.
Hey, and Gino playing in his first playoff game, but also Brock Purdy playing in his first playoff game.
Yeah. And Gino revenge game now because he's lost 2 in a row to San Francisco. And
That's
we know
right.
Gino is 3-3 in revenge games of 2022.
That's right. That's right.
Right.
So there you go. Okay. Everyone, please like the video. Fellas, are we done?
I think
Yeah.
so. I think so.
Ask a question if you'd like it answered. That's a cool thing we can do.
That's right. That's right. That's the power of live recording, baby. Anthony says I'd build a Geno statue if he knocked out at San Francisco the year they finally sweep us. Let's do it. Let's build the
Yeah.
statue. I'll build the statue myself.
Yeah, I'll build a statue in Britain.
There you go.
Do we like mushrooms? Yeah. Yeah, like
Yeah.
a good a girole. Are
Mhm.
you familiar with a girole?
Is it-
A girole. Girole.
No. No,
It's
no,
French.
no.
It's very
Mm.
nice, like a wild
okay.
mushroom, on toast. Bit of garlic,
Okay.
bit parsley, bit of butter.
How big is said mushroom?
Pretty small. It looks a bit like a trumpet. In fact,
Like a trumpet.
Yeah, no, I know
Google
what you mean.
GIROLE.
Okay. I'm
Mm.
gonna look it up. Girol. Oh, okay. Yeah, I see these guys. How does this look like a trumpet to you? I mean, I guess it kind of looks like a trumpet at the end of a trumpet.
I in my front yard, I had fly agaric mushrooms growing, like the red one, the bright bulbous red ones
Oh, like
with like white spots,
like that
like Mario.
Mario guy. Yeah.
Yeah. I pulled them out root and stem, but yeah, it was pretty wild. There's like 15 of them.
Did they kill
Huge.
you?
If you were to eat them like raw, they'd be pretty toxic. But you can cook them and boil them down, and they might have psychedelic properties. I wouldn't know.
You wouldn't know.
I would not know.
You would not know that, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Wolfpack 10-100. I explicitly said tennis is indeed a sport. They're probably not watching live right now because they're probably further back in the recording.
Yeah. But keep commenting. Like, that's fine.
Yeah. Keep commenting for the for the algorithm. I don't think chat messages actually count for the algorithm, but fuck it. Let's just say that they do. Just keep commenting.
Yeah. And like the video. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a wrap. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I hope you're as happy as we all are. Enjoyed tonight responsibly. Enjoy tomorrow responsibly. Enjoy the week responsibly. And we'll be back this Wednesday or Thursday if you're listening with Ty and I's show where we break down the Seahawks news, probably react to injury reports, talk about Denver maybe a tiny bit, but I don't know. I might be dead. But really with a bit of a preview of the 49ers game. Then Thursday or Friday, if you're listening, Griff and I, and maybe Ty, with the film breakdown from this past game. Big things to learn, I think, about the offense and what happened against the Rams downfield on the All-22. Big things to learn about what went right for the defense. Big things to preview against the 49ers. And a big thanks to all of you for listening. Please do like this video, subscribe to the channel, follow Griff at CMikeSpinMove, follow me at Matty F. Brown, follow Ty at Dane Gunzelers. And if you also could please give us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast medium, that would help. And obviously download the show. It gets cut up into little segments, so it's very easy to listen to, and it helps us. And, there's some stuff that isn't on the YouTube, which is like, cut out. So, yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Keep the faith. Remember, keep the faith.
It's not Gene over, baby. Let's fly.
It's Gino beginning.
That's right.
It's Gene on. It's Gene on.
That's
not Gene.
Sure. Yeah.
As opposed to like Gene off. I don't know.